Ouija boards, would you work for me?
Hey, hello and welcome to the Holy Hour Podcast. It's the bi-weekly All Cure podcast, and I have a wonderful show for you guys today. I'm joined by George and Chris of the Morrissey And Wine Podcast. So, not an All Cure podcast today, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, fellas. So great to meet you.
Hi, Gavin.
Hi, Gavin.
Hello. And yes, we had some scheduling issues with our podcast here that got shuffled around as far as what we were planning ahead. And I think this is going to turn out to be the Halloween episode, actually. So It actually works out wonderfully, because I know to some Cure listeners, they're like, oh no, Morrissey's invading the Cure podcast. This is so that's the spooky element of this Halloween episode. But otherwise, I'm very excited to not only talk Morrissey and Cure with you guys, but just another great podcast that's out there if people aren't aware. I love, any single artist podcast, and you guys do a wonderful job with it. It's been a real pleasure. You guys been going for what, about almost 2 years now, right?
Yeah, it's coming up to 2 years, and we do one a month, which is probably good because we drink a lot of wine while we're doing it, so it's to space them out.
Yeah, it's good. We had that trouble early on where I started the podcast with my buddy, and we're kind of awkward dudes anyway. So the only way to really loosen up was to have like way too many drinks. It's, it works. But by the end, it got a little belligerent, we're just like, wah, 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 and I'm like trying to edit everything to make sense. And
episodes like that, haven't we? Where we had a bit too much.
Yeah,
I feel like you always hold it together. It's good. I know. So yeah, you do a great job with just the whole concept of the show. It's really structured well or something, and how you have the segments, the reoccurring segments I really dig, and it's just kind of cool to see those things coming back. We've always kind of kept it loosey-goosey here on the Holy Hour, which is, also fun because I kind of have the freedom to do whatever the hell, but at the same time I always get like cool ideas when I'm listening to your show. I'm like, oh yeah, I should probably try to do something like that a little bit more. Do you guys want to do a quick run through of some of your segments there? Or?
Yeah, what do we do, Chris?
So we do a few things. We have a quiz. We do a quiz in every episode, which we take it in turns to quiz each other. So we're recording the next podcast. I think I'm quizzing you this time, George, with this recording.
Yeah.
So it's 10 questions, Morrissey Smith's related. We try and leave a pause, and then we go ahead. I think I've on the scoreboard I've done a little bit better than you, George, over the last 2 years. Is that right?
Well, it's amazing how we're obviously obsessed enough with Morrissey and the Smiths to do a podcast, but I still frequently score 3 out of 10 in the quiz. So something's going wrong.
Yeah, I always would fancy myself even pretty good with the knowledge and the back stuff, but there's ones that definitely get stumped, and I'm like, or you have like, 4 possible answers or something, depending on what, So it's,
we have to start now doing the A, B, C, or D. Which one is it?
Yeah, multiple choice is good.
Yeah, so we do if you love Morrissey, you love this. So it's a bit of a suggestion. So every episode, me and George try to think of something. This is why I'm quite bad. I always find it hard to think of something. But but obviously, a lot of people who have similarities in music, we think they might like other things that relate to that. So we've had, what suggestions have you had in the past, George? Can you think of any of the ones you've had? Let's see.
We sometimes go for dark sitcoms. Because I think a lot of Morrissey fans have a similar sense of humor. I wonder is that the same in the Cure community, Gav? Do you find that?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. And then, some of them are more hit and miss than others, but definitely that common thread of tends to be more with the darker stuff overlaps more, or even though I'm not as big of like the traditional gothy stuff even, but that kind of tends to be a common thread, like the Joy Division kind of angle tends to overlap more. Then you have like the Cure fans, it's all the Venn diagram of, the ones that like the Smiths, but the more Depeche Mode leaning or something like that. But yeah, as far as movies and shows, a lot of it does kind of translate too. And it was great because that's what gave me the like green light to, oh, I gotta contact these guys because you recommended Wish, and I'm like, okay, cool, they're not like totally anti-cure. So I was like, yes, okay, cool. So it was good to hear that. But just recently, like Kath and Kim is like a cool show that my Aussie friends tipped me off to. So when you're talking about that, I was like, yeah, totally. So lots of good suggestions because, we are all in the same bubble and enough where I'd take you guys' recommendations over like 80% of people I know out in the real world there that I know. It's like, we're all on the same page. So it's a great idea. So
yeah, we've had some good feedback from that. And we also do Nanny Vel Reacts, which is George's nanny. Isn't it, George? Yes. And she reacts to, as a bit of a Morrissey novice, I suppose, Morrissey and Smith novice, but not so much now because she's been doing this for going on 2 years, but reacts to a new song, so a song that she hasn't heard before. And that's George's grandmother.
That's awesome. Yeah, she's awesome. I love those segments here. And she's usually spot on. It's great. It's like, or just like a whole new theory that I hadn't thought of at that angle, and she's
bigger than me and George. People love her. We wheeled her out to the Morrissey show in Manchester. Right. People like, is that really Nanny Vel? And then
the Nanny Vel.
Yeah, the Nanny Vel. Yeah, and
that's awesome.
Photographs with Jesse and the band. Yeah,
that was great. She's gonna start her own spin-off podcast now, and
she's got the following for that.
I love that too. We've tried it, with just friends that like haven't really listened to The Cure much, or something like a fresh ears perspective kind of thing we call it, where it's like kind of cool because like a lot of us have just listened to these songs our whole lives or just throw it through so many times, and you're almost too close to it to really get an opinion anymore, especially like Disintegration or something. We've been through every emotion with this album, and I'm just like, let's see what would that try to recapture that first listen to is really amazing for people, So I love it.
Where it came from, wasn't it, George? George had been watching some of those reaction videos to new songs where someone who wasn't a Morrissey or Smiths fan listened to for the first time a Morrissey and Smith song, and that they're really interesting to watch because I think for us and for you with The Cure, I suppose, you can't really, like you were saying just there, you can't really put yourself in that position of having a fresh set of eyes on it, especially people who've grown up with it. Because I had this, which then moved into Morrissey. There hasn't been like I feel like a mature part of my life where I've not known about the music. So it's you can't really put yourself in that position. So that's quite fresh. It's quite nice to hear that.
I think we're all kind of jealous of that initial first listen again, because it was like so many times I'm like, man, I've just been listening to this song so long that I can't even remember where it first came from or what, it's just like that idea of capturing that again is wonderful. Very cool. And and you guys often pick apart like lyrics mostly in of a specific song. I really like that segment. Is cool.
Yes, we do that segment where we normally pick a song, we listen to the song, and then we go through it, try to think of a new song each time. And that's always quite interesting to do, to also hear George's perspective, because you just assume sometimes that people that your best friend knows thinks the same thing you're thinking, but that isn't.
We've done that with our co-host and stuff, or because we kind of avoid it, like we'll get into any similarities and differences lyrically with The Cure versus Morrissey, because there's a lot of overlap, but at the same time drastically different approaches. And Cure stuff, as gets a little more vague sometimes, like where it's especially the darker early stuff where he could be going on about anything, and it's kind of cool that way because it's so abstract. But at the same time, like our co-host, he'll just have like this totally different perspective. I'm like, wow, I thought it was just a breakup song or something, but he's really diving in. It can just go a million different ways, but I love that.
Different angles, and then sort of the highlight of each episode, I suppose, in some ways, is that we try and get a guest. Which George uses his journalistic magic to find us and to somehow source these people. And we've had, and I've been a bit, we've had some quite interesting guests.
It's a real impressive list. You guys,
some of his sort of key aspects of his life and things. That's what I'm really proud of. we've managed to get those people on, and we had some quite insight.
Yeah. So yeah, just a few, like Stephen Street, it's huge for me. I was like blown away when you got him on there. Alan White, of course, is a huge co-writer of most of my favorite ones of Morrissey, and Boz, and was it Andrew Parisi? Is that how you pronounce it? The drummer guy was really cool. Mark Nevin. So I mean, that's the part I'm really fascinated too, is he's always been kind of more mysterious in how the process works, because you don't really know how these songs, him not being like a guitarist, or like he's not sitting there, so it is really like a cool formula, and you don't really know, like, do they just have this whole finished song and he just has words and a melody? Is he just gotta, some of them seem to lean a certain different way, and you could tell he's just singing over like a demo, like an instrumental demo, but he's probably just singing into a tape recorder a cappella sometimes too, and has these melodies, and they're trying to get stuff to fit, and who knows? But that's kind of the cool mystery, I think. You get a little bit more light into that when you talk to these guys that co-wrote with him in particular. But then the producers and stuff are great, because, he's probably, who knows, to work with in the studio, how that goes with either act.
That's, for me, it's more about the, we love asking the questions around just generally.
Yeah.
Just generally, what's Morrissey like to sit next to, and
to
what happens when you have lunch, or what do you buy him for Christmas? Those sort of
right. Yeah, because I mean, both Robert and him, as far as the interviews you see, there's a definite like relaxed version versus the kind of awkward put on for the interview kind of version, and it's like, so if they're just sitting on the couch mixing an album, like, what is he like? Getting like really weird and serious, or is he just totally goofing around? And it's like, who knows? So it's great to have that kind of insight.
It's funny what you when you meet these people, as you've done and we've done for our podcast, you're talking to people who it's very normal that they worked with Morrissey or Robert Smith. Cure, like there's no glamour in their eyes when they talk about it, and so you get kind of proper insights, don't you?
Yeah, it is cool and hard, because you would just be like, well, wouldn't you just be like asking him every goofy question constantly the whole day? but I guess they're all professional enough to. And of course, the wine segment is great, where you just get suggestions on delicious wines from your region and beyond.
We're trying to get better at that. I feel like we're improving our wine knowledge, because mine wasn't great. My wine knowledge at the start was that I like red wine, I don't like white wine.
Yeah,
so it definitely improved from there. I've started to know which ones that I might like.
That's good. It doesn't get overly elaborate, where it could be a whole podcast in itself.
I'm sure it's fun. But we tried to try and guess the notes a little bit more, so try and guess the wine notes to make it a bit more interesting. If we actually are learning about wine.
So I'm always like thirsty after I listen to the episodes there. I'm like, man, I want to get a bottle of wine now and put on some Smiths and some good. So it's working there, but very cool. So I look forward to the podcast. I suggest it to anybody out there that's remotely interested. There aren't really many single artist ones. It's fascinating with that, and you would think when I was like wanting to start a pod, I don't know, it was weird, like getting into podcasting in general. Like I was working this like data entry job that was really boring, so they suggested that you listen to podcasts and stuff. So I never really listened to many podcasts, and just trying to find something music related, and so it's like, I can't believe there isn't a Cure one out there, and I did find a couple, like a Smiths one early on that was just like Morrissey and Smith, that was just so awful. It was like kind of train wreck bad, but fun too, because I loved it so much. But it was like these two American younger guys, and it was like just enough info to keep me rolling, but like they didn't know a lot of this stuff, so you start getting a little like, oh, come on, you should know this, you're shaking your fist at the recordings. But it actually inspired me. I'm like, well, shit, I could do that for the Cure if you don't only have to, so it's kind of good. But so did you guys do much scoping around to see if there was other Morrissey ones? How'd the whole process starting the podcast?
Well, I had this email fanzine called the Morrissey Mercury.
Okay.
and we built up a decent mailing list. We've been going for a year or two. And then I decided to try a podcast as part of the same thing, you know. And so I asked Chris to come on board, and the podcast just took off much more than the fanzine was. And the fanzine was every month, and it had quite a lot of articles in it, and it was a lot of work. Whereas the podcast, we felt, came a bit easier. I mean, obviously you can make it complicated as you want, but to start with, it was very basic. And I think there's just something about the medium of podcasting. People are willing to listen to 45 minutes, an hour of a thing, whereas in every other aspect of life, you can't get people to concentrate for like 5 seconds.
Yeah, that was always the struggle with us early on, because we'd just ramble about the Cure for sure, at 2 hour long episodes, and we still stretch it pretty long, press our luck. I've tried to rein it in a bit, but it's tough. But that's kind of cool about podcasts, is like, if you're in it, you can always just pause it and can pick it up again, where it doesn't really matter. We tried to break a few longer ones up early on, be like, well, maybe we should make it like a part 2, because we really went on and on. It's like, well, who cares? People just pause it and come back to it. But it's got tangents are great, people just go off on, because half the time you're sort of doing that in your head when you're listening to the stories anyway. You're like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this and that and my thing. And so it is a good way to embrace it. Did you guys always do the video side from the start?
No, I mean,
catch on, or was that
when
later?
It started? George persuaded me to say it was just us two with a speaker in a lounge. The microphone, the microphone in a lounge.
Right.
That's the one, the microphone. In a lounge, and then George one day said, "Can we record it on our iPhone?" And I was a bit nervous, but we did that. And now we've got these big studio lights on my face, which makes me like I look like the Elephant Man or something. So it's quite scary. It's quite a change, really. But so yeah, it basically evolved over time. And we've got obviously Gary on board at Red Eye, and he's got on board from being a listener as well. And he's been like great for us. So yeah, it evolves slowly, but yeah, we are, aren't we? Is that right, George?
Yeah. I mean, Gary is a videographer, and he has a studio, and he listened to the podcast, and he just contacted us and said, do you want to film one in my studio? And we did, and we've been working together since, and he puts loads of work into it. So
yeah, sounds great. I mean, I was always just on the audio side, and then kind of caught on like super late. I was like, oh wow, there's a whole video version on here too. And then I was like, whoa, this looks great. Holy shit, they're like in a TV studio or something. So yeah, very professional.
It's all George. He wants to monopolize everything. We have to. We have to on YouTube, on this channel. There's these channels he mentions to me. I didn't even know they existed. So.
Yeah, that's good. We're just always in like our sweatpants half the time. We're like, oh, who cares? Nobody's gonna look at us for fun. So that's great. Yeah, I love it, and totally recommend it. And it is weird. I guess I just never been where I'd sit there and watch a podcast. It's not really my angle. I like the audio version more, but it does seem to be almost the more popular angle to go nowadays, as people love the YouTube thing and to watch it, and it's fun. So I get it.
Mix of listeners, don't we, between the audio and visual video? But we have some people comment, say like almost like an angry comment. Why aren't you recording this? We have some on YouTube, didn't we? We put the audio on YouTube, and then we had at least one comment, I remember, George, where someone was almost angry that we hadn't recorded it. So that was.
And then it's just the radio aspect of how everybody has their own vision of what you look like or whatever, too. And it's like, as soon as you see that, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't think you looked like that. I'm like, what what's that supposed to mean? But stuff like that. But, very cool. So, yeah. So, I mean, one of the main bridges for this episode and such, too, is like we said in that one episode, you suggested the Cure. So it is important to stress that people out there can like both the Cure and the Smiths and Morrissey, and there's plenty of us out there. So I mean, it's one of those things, especially more recent years. I think people feel like they've had to take sides for whatever reasons, and and just knowing that there was always a weird ish rivalry in a sense between Robert and Morrissey, which I don't know where, you guys came into it all, but I remember as a kid, because I was kind of oblivious, I got into both like fairly young. I was like, 12 or 13, Smiths before The Cure. Even my older brother was huge Morrissey Smiths fan. So I almost even gravitated towards The Cure more just because they were already his band, one of those deals. So I was all like, well, The Cure is my band then and stuff. But the love was definitely there. And so, yeah, when it comes to like when I found out that they weren't each other's fans by any means, I was like, wow, it was like just kind of shocking, because they hit on so many of the things that I think a lot of music listeners would love in both, so it's pretty cool.
I think the rivalry, George will probably have some more insight on it than I do. But I think for me, a big part, I think all of us three obviously enjoy both, love both, so that we're not in that crowd. But also I think I don't know, part of me thinks, and I wasn't there at the time, but in the 80s Morrissey said lots of biting comments about lots of different artists, lots of comments that were short and bitey and witty, and I think probably Robert Smith bit back, and then that caused probably a little bit, and obviously always in the news press, in the music press or whatever, have made that bigger. But yeah, I think part of it was probably that he bit back a little bit, whereas some people probably just didn't, and it didn't become a thing. That's some of my theory. What do you think about that, George?
I think that's probably true. I think it's very manufactured rivalry, and I asked a chap called Paul, who's written books about the Smiths and a bit of a historian, and he said he thought it was pretty much manufactured as well. But I think it's partly because the bands are in such similar patches on the musical scene. The visuals are so different, aren't they? Robert Smith with his black backcombed hair and the lipstick and the eyeshadow, and then at the time Morrissey very boring looking, with a big woman's blouse, no makeup, no silly hair. So you see like a tribe forming, don't you? And you think, I've got to choose one of these tribes.
Yeah, it's very strange. Like when you think of it visually too, while they both tap in to, the rough adolescent emotions so well, like when we got into them and stuff, they both speak to you and be like, that's exactly how I feel in this awkwardness right now. But when you do look at them on stage as performers and stuff, you could see how even, like Robert would look at this like super handsome dude that's ripping his shirt off on stage. It's like, I'm nothing like that, but yeah, that was always my big takeaway too, was that it was kind of just a manufactured thing. I think Robert even called it an imaginary feud in one of his quotes later, when it's just like, and we've seen that through and through. We got real into the NME and Melody Makers and stuff when we were like into Britpop in the 90s, and we would get those magazines from the stores. And so then it was the Oasis Blur thing where they just build them both up and let them fight each other to the death in the press, so you could see how they were. And even going back to what you were saying about the quotes, most all of them were just reactions to what they're saying. Hey, did you hear Morrissey said this? And then Robert would say something witty back, and then they'd read that to Morrissey and he'd have to say something. So I think that's a lot of it too, is that they're both very witty, smart guys, so they're not going to just be like, oh, that's sad, I kind of miss that, really. That's kind of what happens now in the press. You get a few bands that will battle back and forth, but I always loved that about the British acts, because they would just like rip into each other and say these like really horrible but awful and hilarious things about it. But it's like, I guess we had some of that too. Like Courtney Love was a mess, but it was always funny just to read her quotes in the 90s and stuff. I'm like, I kind of miss that. Like somebody just saying like this crazy shit in the press, Of course, Oasis, but so I don't know. Yeah, I feel like they were just kind of poking the bears to see what happens a lot of times, So,
yeah. I think also you've got in Robert Smith and in Morrissey, two people that inspire very kind of strong obsession. And how many obsessions can you have at that level, right? I'm not sure if I could accommodate an obsession with Robert Smith and an obsession with Morrissey, even though equally worthy, you know.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, like if everybody I know that does love both, you always lean a little way one more, you know, like I always had to kind of take my Morrissey breaks and get back to my Cure grounding and stuff. But then there'd be long stretches where they just weren't putting out albums, and, you know, I'm not going to Europe for the festival or anything, so you really don't have anything. That's what was kind of nice about starting the podcast, is it allowed myself to obsess over the Cure a bit more, and I could like have a reason to look at every set list of every show I'm not going to and stuff, you know, and I could really just nerd out to it's reporting, you know. It's not my obsession. But I mean, before that, I was working at a bookstore, and like really, and it was kind of around, you know, like Years of Refusal and stuff. So Morrissey was having a kind of another huge comeback, which he's had a couple that really pulled me back in. And I remember just being like totally obsessed with all those albums and tracking down all the references from like the Mazzopedia book and stuff, or all those old movies. And he started unlocking the doors of like, oh, holy shit, Taste of Honey, that's what this is from, and that line and this and the movie and the picture of that stars from this. So working at the bookstore, I had access to all these like different books that I could try to make the Morrissey connections and stuff. So, which turns out they were there for the Cure too, but I didn't know them at the time, so it's all good. But yeah, it is exhausting if you really want to obsess over both. But very possible. So yeah, I mean, it's weird too with the quotes. You know, we could read some of them, but most people have probably heard them all a billion times. Of course, you know, they've had some good ones back and forth at each other for sure, but they almost don't even really attack each other as much as they would if the rivalry was as much as they always act like it is in the press. You know, I've seen like tons of Cure things just in my podcast stuff that, you know, there was like a video from the 90s, like early 90s, where they're backstage at something. Did you see that Play Out one by any chance? It was like a Cure that followed them around for a week, and
oh yeah,
there's like that thing where they're backstage and there's a giant poster of Morrissey. I think it's like Bona Drag era, you know, where he's got his shirt off and his armpit all hanging out and everything. And it was just such like a, oh no, here it comes. They're going to start making fun of Morrissey. And didn't even phase them. They didn't say anything. I'm like, well, you must not hate him that bad, you know. It's they're like making fun of, you know, George Michael more or something in the video. But so it was like kind of opportunities like that, you know, and you know, Robert's look over the years would be pretty easy to poke at if you were Morrissey, I'd think, but he never does, you know. So I think and he even had that one fairly recently where he kind of backtracked. It was a Morrissey quote saying, yeah, I think I got it here somewhere, but you recall that one? It was like kind of a retraction of like, I said some stuff that I probably shouldn't have. Yeah, here it is. He said, I never make my regrets small if I can help it. Oh, Robert Smith, I said some horrible things about him 35 years ago, but I didn't mean them. I was just being very Grange Hill. I don't know if it's a reference of something.
Yeah. Is it George? Or like
it's a kid's soap opera from like the 80s.
Okay. Oh, so yeah, it was probably meaning he was being over dramatic with the So he says it's great when you can blame everything on Tourette's syndrome. He said, which is classic Morrissey throwing in something. You're like, what? So now you're making fun of Tourette's syndrome? Who knows? But kind of cool, which is weird for him. You wouldn't think he would make many public sorries or, you know, not even an apology, but just kind of saying, and it's the same thing. I think going back to the rivalry idea that I don't think that either of them lost sleep over either one of them. You know, it was never anything that really even bothered them as they left the interview. I think they probably already forgot about it.
And maybe it's a shame that Morrissey's put the rivalry to bed, because rivalries are good for pop music, aren't they?
Sure, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe it would be.
I mean, we're saying about the rivalries in, you know, from now even. I mean, I don't follow the music too much, but there's a lot of rivalries there, sort of between. Lana Del Rey and Taylor Swift at the moment. There's something going on there. So like we say, there's like these different, there was different, it happens each time, and that it's obviously something that people, I think fans enjoy it to an extent, and it's fun to talk about, especially when in our world, when Morrissey and Robert are doing those quite witty remarks. They are quite funny. great
exactly.
and quite funny. So
yeah, those two going at it, it's going to be way more entertaining than just some kind of boring pop stars that don't really know how to insult each other properly. It's like, at least when they do it, they're being smart and fun about it. That's same with like Blur and Oasis. Even Oasis kind of outwitted them. I think that's why the people always pull up those quotes more of like what they would say, just like, whoa, geez, stuff like that. Poor Damon, a lot of times just like, what the hell, he wouldn't really fight back a lot of times. He's like, that's kind of mean. But yeah, it is good for it. I guess people aren't really as keen at like listening to 65-year-old men yell at each other too in an interview. It's like, these guys are still fighting? Jeez, that's so weird. But I guess just, and, the 80s in general, like you had said earlier, where, even Robert was a lot snippier in his younger, when they were like in those early ages. He definitely had he's kind of taken the role of the overly nice dude in the press now, where he's the one fighting Ticketmaster and happy to talk about charities or donate and everything, where he's just really kind of locked in his place as being this nice dude that's just always doing these things and helping out his bandmates and such. But like in the 80s, he definitely had plenty of interviews. I remember where he would just go down the list of all these bands that I know he likes, even like, New Order. He had battles with them because they would go back and forth about nicking songs and stuff, and Echo and the Bunnymen, even. That was a funny one. I think he would always start out where he loved their first couple albums, but then in some interview would be like, his new album sucks though, or something. Kind of harsh, And it's like they act like they hate each other, but then I'd see a picture of like Ian McCulloch and he has like his VHS collection behind him, and there's like 3 Cure ones. I'm like, well, he's still watching the concerts. What the hell? So I think it was just, it's hard to praise your peers too, especially in the 80s. I think when you're playing with these bands, you can't really say you love them too much because they're kind of the competition or whatever, So I think there's probably a lot of that in the.
What would you say in the would be other in your opinion? What other like similarities or links are there? Have you got any links that you've made from, because obviously being a fan of both?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is just the band aspect versus kind of like an artist that's the front man, and he's had. But there are, and like a lot of the big similarities, I think, is kind of what we touched on with the hitting on those adolescent or just young emotions. I think that's why a lot of people catch on to these bands when they're going through the hard stuff in your younger years, and then they're good enough that it sticks, So it's weird because we kind of all, I think, expect it to wear off, as it does with some bands. As you get older, you just don't really need to be hearing about, making out under the bridge or whatever, but it's like something about both of them are so good that, I still feel like I identify just in different ways, as you get older, and both of them have songs now that kind of touch on more of aging and dying and stuff like that, as opposed to, awkward teen feelings. But I think that is the connecting point. I would be curious to hear of any like newer like older fans that got into like the Cure or the Smiths or Morrissey, like when you're like in your 30s or something, it'd be like fun. I guess it's just impossible to not know of them, hopefully by that point. but it would be interesting because I feel like you do latch on, and they both hit it so well. That's why I used to be more confused by it, but musically they are drastically different, but there are just like those emotions that both of them hit so good. I think, where you feel like the song could be about you, or, you identify with it so well. And then you get into the different ways that they do it. I guess it's just, the lyrical approaches, I guess. My brother always had more of the theory that I didn't always totally agree with, but he would say like, so maybe you guys would be able to know, where he's like more of the English culture of like the Cure, Robert's more of the lad kind of dude or something, and Morrissey would be more of the intellectual librarian, like the book nerd kind of kid or something. So just the different angles of personality maybe, but I don't know how true that would be, because I feel like both of them are that way to a certain degree too, because Robert's very intellectual and reads tons, and so many songs are based on books and stuff, but like we were saying earlier, it's just a little more abstract, I think, and Morrissey will kind of throw it out there I mean, he does it though too. He's not super literal. You don't always really know what the hell angle it's coming from, but it's always.
I suppose Robert is like more of the lad, and Morrissey is more of the kind of the geek in the class, you know, with the good hair.
Yeah.
But then also Robert wears the makeup in that sort of the way that he's sort of saying, you can't accuse me of, I'm so comfortable with the lad that I am that I'm going to wear this makeup and look really good. So they're both kind of playing with sort of traditional ideas of what it is to be a man, I suppose.
Yeah. And I guess that whole kind of connecting piece is Bowie at the top, you know, that they both, you know, took that, I think, as a whole huge element of their DNA, you know, and you could see which angles they kind of lean into. You know, it's like when you have siblings and you take different parts from your parents, you know, but you're still the same in a sense. So yeah, I like that. Or lyrically too, I feel like Robert tends to paint like the picture more of like a scene thing. I feel like Morrissey's are very like human emotion, people based, you know, like a lot of the songs are all going to be, if it's not him, then a character, and it's like a whole specific emotion this person's going through. Robert's more likely to go on about the rain or the sunset, or, you know what I mean? Like Morrissey, he has a little of that, but doesn't really tend to dive into the non-human side of things. Is a difference, I guess. But
I think that's right, and I think that also. So Morrissey, when he's writing lyrics, and Robert Smith, when he's writing lyrics, they're both lyric heavy writers, but I feel like, and they both deal with sadness and loneliness. But Robert's writing I think it's got a little bit more like glitter and, you know, enchantment, whereas Morrissey's is more kind of ordinary. I mean, they're both good in good ways, you know.
Yeah. Morrissey's always can, like, the ones I would always kind of fall away from on songs that don't work as well for me with Morrissey. It was always, we joke with my brother, I'm like, he kind of just seems like he's reading his diary over like a song, you know, like it's not like the ones that don't fit quite as well, you know, but then when it does, it's like spot on, you know. But even that, it's like kind of cool because he's like spilling his guts out. It might not be a great song, but it's something that obviously means something to him. Like, I never really feel like he's phoning it in or anything, you know, where it's just kind of like, okay. And Robert, you know, is a little more prone to not sing. I think that's just more of the musician side of it, where he won't come in for like 3 minutes and then he'll just sing like one verse and then play another 3 minutes, you know, and he's happy. Morrissey will yodel the whole way out of the end of the song, or, you know, just keep the vocals rolling through the whole thing, I think. So it's a cool difference there, I think, in the musicianship of like where they feel like they have to put the vocals or just keep the music rolling. So. Oh, I guess something you've touched on in episodes that I liked was the, like, when talking to your Nan there about like the character versus autobiographical, you know, and that's a similarity. I think a lot of times people tend to really assume every Cure song is Robert spilling his honest autobiographical, and then we find that it is just a book that he's singing about, you know, like the character in a book or something. Or I think he does just kind of invent these characters where the sorrow's coming from, you know. And definitely with Morrissey, you could tell that not every song is him, like I said, reading from his diary or something. It's definitely an angle. And I think that's a lot of the confusion with Morrissey lyrics too, where they think he's meaning everything he said, you know what I mean? It's like, no, it's a character. So you guys have any thoughts on that as far as when they tap into that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I personally much prefer the Morrissey songs when he's as if he's talking from his diary, you know. And
yeah, me too.
He will do songs. There's a song called Istanbul, which is totally, as you know, totally about a fictitious father and son, and Morrissey's playing the father part. I mean, I presume fictitious. But there's a few songs like that, and especially in later years, he started to write vignettes about people living all over the world, politics and all this sort of stuff. And that's never really my favorite. I much prefer when Morrissey or other artists are, you know, writing from their diary, singing from their diary.
Yeah, especially even like Cure ones like that, where I feel like there are certain ones where I feel like it's more personal than others, and maybe he's just, you know, good at tricking us that, or because Robert's weird too, because he's been married for so long, happily married as far as we know, for like since '88, so it's kind of like, Disintegration came out right after he got married to like his childhood sweetheart. So it's like, where's this coming from, dude? Like, it's like, we don't really know. He's such a private guy that, it's like, who knows what kind of relationship it was, all those years leading up to it. Maybe these are, or he just like had a friend that was going through some heavy shit, and that's what he wrote the song about from their perspective, and it's kind of cool because I think, like I said, with both of them, that's what makes it so adaptable as a listener. You can feel like that's you, I could, it doesn't have to be 100% true or anything. So
I think when you've got so many songs like they have as well, I suppose once you've said at a certain point, you've made that point. And I'm, as I'm sure Robert has as well, Morris has had such I imagine, exciting life, met so many different people and done so many things that I suppose it's some social commentary as well on things that they've noticed. Like George mentioned the song Istanbul, and then obviously there's songs like Asian Rut and other songs that you think this obviously is not really about Morrissey, his own life. It's about something he's seen or something he's interested in or going through, or like you say, if it's in those sort of songs that you talked about from The Cure, maybe it's friends, not just his own experience. I think that could be part of it. And I suppose if you're that good at putting together those words to make such a meaning, then it's good that they exist, even if it's not you. So I think that's probably part of it. But I agree with George that I prefer the autobiography sort of
the ones that feel more
because you feel like you're learning a bit about your hero.
A little peek into the mystery there. For sure. Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the downside of the songs being so emotional, and you're able to dig into the personality side where you assume that everything is supposed to be them or not, and that's what kind of gets them in trouble too, in a sense. So it's like, no, it could be just a weird, because Robert's had ones where he's like singing a song and he'll start tearing up at a live show or something, and sometimes it's a bit shocking which one. I'm like, that song? Huh. I always think of as the fan, you're just kind of like, oh, I didn't even think I thought that was one that for sure didn't really mean that much. He was just filling out the album with her. It's like, no, man, this is the really heavy hitting one or something. So very strange.
I don't think we've ever seen Morrissey cry on the stage.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought of that, but he's...
Yeah, because and he has some quite recently some of the quite emotive stuff. I mean, he's recently done has a backdrop which is his mother. He has on Morrissey songs, Morrissey album shows. There's always a backdrop to every song. His late mother, who died a few years ago, he's used that on the backdrop, and that's quite moving, I guess, because. Although you don't obviously see him cry, which is quite interesting, but obviously you also know that Morrissey's tour manager and his photographer, they're all kind of related. I guess it goes back to that sort of keeping it in the family with Irish. You look after your own, which is quite a nice thing actually. But at the same time, I suppose it must be quite moving for all of them to see that when they're in the room at a show. Yeah, but you don't see him cry. Maybe he's too tough.
He just bottles it all up, He's moving around a lot more usually, so I can see if he starts to feel it, maybe that's when he starts doing the mic whips and goes around and
so mechanism, I'm sure. Yeah,
snap you out of it. Yeah, poor Robert's just kind of stuck up there. He's just strumming his guitar. He's gonna start tearing up, but so yeah, it's gotta be hard. I mean, so many of those songs, I'm not that often where I would tear up at shows, but both of those artists, last time we just saw Morrissey, even it was weird because, as I'm older and getting just so many levels of these things, when you hear these songs, you have so many emotions and memories attached to them. I was so happy to take my son to see Morrissey last November. It was his first show, and he's 12, and he did Please Let Me Get What I Want. And I was just, I've heard that song so many times. I love it. But at the same time, it just like hit like almost like the first time again. I was just like trying to hold it all in and everything. I was like, I can't lose my shit here, like trying to bottle it all up. But I was just like, oh my God, it's like just thinking of me at that age, listening to it and stuff. So super powerful. Speaking of live then, so you had mentioned, Chris, that you're going to see Morrissey, hopefully, pretty soon in California. Don't want to jinx anything, but
touch wood. So I'm really excited for that. I'm excited to go to America. I know you've got your own issues going on over there, like every country has. But to be fair, it's one of my favorite countries in the world. Me and George were actually there at the start of the year. We were in New Orleans. That was great. First time it snowed in years, I think we visited. But then,
you were there for that.
Hopefully a bit sunnier and a bit warmer in Los Angeles. So I'm driving. I'm going for a proper vacation. So I'm driving between LA and San Francisco via the national parks and things. But particularly, obviously, excited that when I land on the 25th, and he's playing later on in that evening. So, it's always interesting to see you're an artist, and obviously from the Cure in different countries, you get a different reaction. So that's what I really enjoy about when you can afford to do those shows and when you can make it happen. Because it's very different seeing Morrissey in Los Angeles than it is seeing him in Northern England. Or even sort of Antwerp or something. It's a different experience, really.
Yeah, I bet.
It's a bit calmer nicer in some ways. And sometimes in Northern England, you get everyone's had 7 pints before Morrissey comes on. Whereas in America, it feels a bit more dignified in a way.
Special occasion, yeah. It's very cool. Yeah, I love LA. We've been out a bunch of times, and always fun going out there. So that'll be cool. So you've seen a bunch then?
When are you seeing the Cure again?
I don't have tickets set yet. Yeah, we didn't lock anything down for they've announced a bunch of European festivals for 2026 where they're doing all the just kind of all around everywhere from Norway to doing Paris and stuff. Then they've announced a few that are more like straight up Cure shows. They're doing like in Manchester and
I saw the Manchester one.
So, yeah.
We tried to get tickets, but I couldn't manage. But we're gonna try. We're gonna try again and see if we get some resale tickets because my younger brother's a big fan.
Cool.
And even my stepmom, she wants to go, so we're going to try and do that.
Awesome.
I'm sure George would like to come as well if we can get tickets.
Yeah, it'd be cool. It's always tempting. The last time they did this in 2019, they played like Glastonbury and everything, and then they came out at the end out here and hit a few of the U.S. ones and kind of created a festival for out in Pasadena, California. They did like where he just picked a bunch of the bands they like and they all played out there. So a lot of people went out to that. I saw him in Austin, Texas, at Austin City Limits there. Just kind of, my wife surprised me with a ticket. I wasn't planning on going, so that was really awesome. And it's always tempting when I start digging into the set list. The hype kicks in more and more, but a lot of them are sold out. So who knows? But hoping for like just a regular tour because the festivals are always. Are you guys big on doing festivals? You're young and probably able to hang in there, but
George definitely is not interested in festivals.
George,
kind of the lightest amount of inconvenience, and George won't be there.
Yeah.
I've got a slightly different background. I'm used to I don't mind getting a bit rough and ready, so I'll go to a festival. But George likes the nice calm shows where he can walk in last minute.
Yeah, it's good. You get your
and then walk out.
You don't necessarily sit in it, but it's good to just have the seat, like the theater ones. But it's tough.
Maybe one day I'll get to that stage, but
yeah. And I can blame my kid too because he wants to go to all these things, but I wouldn't be able to drag him to like some festival in a field somewhere.
So it does wear off after a while. But I've seen Morrissey does, I think, fewer festivals than Robert, so I think that's probably why there's not as many. But I went to Cruel World Festival in 22, which is festivals in America, or at least the ones I've been to, are not like the ones in England anyway. So our festivals are just like sloppy mud everywhere, and like rain and tents full of tipped over beer cans. Whereas in Cruel World, it was very like nice and very. I mean, it's a bit too hot for me, but it was pretty.
Yeah, they've gotten the formula down well over here to where, it's almost that Austin City Limits one. It was like everyone had like the 5 different layers of VIP and the people on the golf carts going, it's like, so, but yeah, it was like at least plenty of water and bathroom options where you're not totally just stuck out in some field. That's why I was a little worried everybody going to the European cure ones and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, I'll probably get on like some wrong bus in France and end up in some field that, I'm kind of oblivious trying to do that stuff on my own. I don't trust myself, stuck out in some field for a week. But so, yeah, do you have a rough number of how many Morrissey shows you guys have made it to? Has it been up
it was George.
I think I've probably been to about a dozen.
Okay, yeah.
Chris has been to a lot more.
Yeah, so I've actually I did work it out because I've always I get a T-shirt from each one, but I've been to 51, so 51 shows to date.
Awesome.
So I'm pretty So it's
excellent.
But yeah, that's nothing on some of my friends. That's nothing on some of mine and George's friends who have been over the centenary and whatever. So they're
that's crazy. We got Cure listener fans here that like when I talk to them, they're like, yeah, they lose count. It's so many, in hundreds or whatever, which is great. I wish I would have followed them around or even Morrissey back in the day more, like I for some reason always just kind of see them when they came to. I lived near DC growing up, and so I'd see them like once every 4 years or whatever when they tour, but for some reason, it never really occurred to me that I could just drive another like 2 hours up to Philly and see them again there, and I just started doing that in later years. Like the last 2023 tour, we did like 3 nights in New York and then Philly and then, in Maryland and Miami. So different crews the whole time and stuff like that. But
people react strangely, don't they, when you mention that to people, because people can maybe understand you go to see Morrissey, each tour, so maybe like the next year's tour, but seeing like three nights or 4 nights or 5 nights in a tour, some people I know go to every single show literally, and I've been asked before, well, doesn't he just play the same songs and isn't it just the same set list, or isn't it the same thing again, even if one song changes? But that's not really the point, is it, for us? It's to be there.
There's always something different. There's always gonna be something changing it up, and I feel like he shuffles it pretty good from show to show. It might be the same batch of songs, but at least he'll kind of rearrange the order a few times, just depending on the tour. But Cure's definitely good at that, where they'll have at least, once you really start studying it, it's not as mysterious initially, but they have like the slots in the set list where they're putting in one every like 3 days or so. They'll shuffle one and out, so it's like a pool that they're coming from, but the structure is usually pretty much the same. But
the structure, I don't think Morrissey's guys are that organized. I think it's just sort of how he feels on the day.
It's always cool. But his are always nice when he sprinkles in the Smiths ones too. Like just knowing which Smith songs you got is probably a huge thing each show, and being like, he didn't do that one that I did 2 nights ago or whatever. But so yeah, that's pretty rad. But very cool. And he just announced the London show for 2026, right?
That's right.
O2 or something. You think you guys are gonna try to hit that one up?
I think we've agreed we're going, haven't we?
Yes. Chris has found this hotel in London near the BBC headquarters, and it's really cheap and really nice. So we're staying there. Nice. And now I have a license to go to London, because you know how expensive it is in that city to travel, to stay, whatever. So yes, we're going to go and we're going to book this BBC hotel and hopefully bump into some newsreaders in there.
Yeah, George is only going because it's a nice hotel, which is awesome. So yeah, I was working in London last year, and I managed to find this surprisingly nice, right next to the as George said, the BBC. So I think we see occasionally when I was there, I saw some news presenters and things walk past. But that'll be convenient, because the O2, it's a big venue in London. It's a shame. I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, and other fans from your side, but I often think that the venue's a bit too big. I'd rather it be a more, because people say, well, arenas. People say, well, we pick arenas because they're. I heard somebody, I think, because the Lady Gaga tour was in Manchester this week, so she's been playing at the Co-op Arena where Morrissey played recently.
Okay.
somebody said to me that she's picked because she could sell out anything, I imagine, but she's picked arenas because they're more intimate than stadiums. And I thought that I don't think an arena is intimate. I mean, the O2, which was the old Millennium Dome, last time I went there was at the Millennium, when it was like a feature in London for the Millennium, and yeah, it's obviously a massive venue. So it's a shame because me and George have been lucky to go to venues like Razzmatazz in Barcelona, which is really kind of small. It feels like almost like a bit of a club, and other small venues, and those shows are just so much better in my opinion than even if you've queued up and near the front. I mean, obviously for someone like Morrissey to sell out those venues, like he sold out the Co-op is the biggest in Manchester, is the biggest venue in England, but also the biggest in like Western Europe, I think. So for him to sell the biggest indoor venue, so to sell that out is he's probably quite proud of that in his hometown. But obviously for fans, I think it's not really what I want.
Anytime you can get anything a little more controllable. I mean, they're both the type of acts. They're my number 1 and 2, you know. So it's like I'll make any exception, but it is, you know, the arenas are pretty sterile for Cure stuff. You just hope it's one that has like a general admission down in the front that you can squeeze in down there, and even that was kind of cool. On that last, we saw him 3 nights at Madison Square Garden, which is just, you know, giant arena, but it was, you know, one we were down on the floor more, one we were kind of in the middle in the seats, and then one was like total nosebleeds at the end. But each one kind of had its different perspective. But I wouldn't have hated for the one show to be the nosebleed one, you know, or something, which it's better than nothing. But at the same time, it's always nice with the Cure does the pavilions a lot we have here, where it's like an outdoor kind of amphitheater where you have seated section, but then there's like a giant lawn a lot of times. And those tend to be pretty cool because sometimes they'll have a general admission up front, but then it's all kind of just nice because it's out, you know, not totally closed in, so you don't feel like totally claustrophobic in there and stuff, you know, you get a little air and stuff. And the lawn seats are great for people that, you know, can't afford the fancy ones. So it's always good to have an option for if you do want to go to multiple shows, you could kind of just get a few in the lawn if you're out somewhere, you know, so that's nice. But it's tough. We looked out with Morrissey a couple times in DC. It's a pretty big venue, but it's the 930 Club's kind of historic one. Has like a balcony, but we saw him there a few times, and that was great because it was on the smaller side where you could actually get a good spot and view. And once it was New York somewhere. I forget what the hell it was called now, but it was kind of the same setup where we got a cool balcony spot, but it was like when it kind of stretches around right over the stage. So you were like really pretty close there. And we went, me and my wife, and she was like 8 months pregnant, I think, with my kids. That was great. So I always kind of count that as his first show, you know. He got to sort of see Morrissey before, you know, the world. So,
that'll have a good impact on his. Who knows?
Yeah, so we'll see what that does to him.
I was just going to say, obviously, the Morrissey and Wine podcast, we video it, so it's visual. On YouTube, and I've noticed, and maybe some eagle-eyed viewers will also notice, behind you you've got a bookmark, a James Dean bookmark. Yeah. Obviously that's obviously a link to Morrissey in a big way. Yeah. I wondered how, because I've got the same one, how you came about that.
Oh really? Yeah, I got it just recently.
In James Dean, because obviously we know Morrissey's he's one of Morrissey's heroes.
Yeah, huge connection there, and that was another huge early on one for me as a kid. I'd known the Smiths and Morrissey through my brother, but right around the same time, I got really into James Dean because my mom just had mentioned him, and we watched Rebel Without a Cause together. I just latched onto him. I thought he was the coolest, and loved it. And then shortly around that time, the Suede Head video came out. So that was like really early on. And then that just like sealed the deal for me, where I was like, holy shit, where I knew all the references from the Suede Head video with the little prints and everything. So I was like obsessed with it from that. And I mean, on the other walls in here, I've got tons of James Dean pictures and stuff. And just recently I'd been in the early 2000s, but we went to see Oasis in Chicago actually. And we figured out, since we were driving, if we took a slight detour out, we could hit up Fairmount, Indiana again, James Dean's hometown, and it was great just getting another glimpse at everything. And they've got a really nice museum there now. And I got that little bookmark just on this last trip because it was in a book that we got. Have you been out there by any chance?
I have, yeah. So when I went to see Morrissey last year in November at Niagara Falls, and we then went down to he did a show in Indianapolis and in Flint. I did the 3 shows, and we had a car. And we drove, and it was all snow. It was loads of snow and things. It was not the best time to drive. We drove there on the way to Indianapolis, and it was pretty cool. Really good museum.
The museum.
To go, it is a really good museum, and the guy who runs it's obviously super passionate. And there's almost like 2 museums, isn't there? And there's
that's what I was gonna say. The gallery, and then the big newer museum that has a lot of the actual artifacts. And that's where I got the bookmark, was in the book from the guys at the gallery that I had met the first time. Because when I went in like 2001, just the gallery was there. The actual big museum wasn't there yet. So a friend of mine, like, we went and talked to the owners there, and they were still there, and it was awesome. And this time I got more of the scoop that, he'd, with Lenny, I think it was, is like put out a book, and it's all his past stories and life story basically. And he has huge Smiths connections because I was wearing my Smith shirt and stuff. So he, went into it and showed me in his book that he was the one that they contacted through Rough Trade to do the cropping for the Strange Ways Here We Come picture and stuff. Apparently Morrissey had that old kind of big picture-y book of James Dean and was pulling all those images from that. So like all these pictures that I obsessed over as a kid, like the connections were totally there through these Morrissey things. And he had like the proofs that he had sent to him. He's like, oh yeah. And that bookmark was in there. And so that was really cool just to see them again, and then see the actual museum and all the artifacts. And then you can kind of do the walking tour through the town of not only cool James Dean stuff, but everywhere he goes in Suede Head video. And
we did that. Yeah, we had to do it when we were there.
That's awesome.
Got some sort of matching photos, tried to work out where they were taken, and
it was cool.
That's a bit. I don't know if it's a big thing in sort of the Robert Smith Cure world, but a lot of people try to recreate when there's a picture of Morrissey. Yeah,
Morrissey definitely makes it easier because they're always so like epically, you can find them. But like Robert, and even going through the towns and stuff, I feel like they're from Crawley. So there are spots out there that people do the pilgrimage and go out and visit all the Cure spots, but a lot of them aren't there anymore. So I think it's more stuff from the videos people try to track down, or like in Orange, amphitheater out in France and stuff. People go there and do the pictures. But Morrissey ones are great. And then there's so many cool James Dean photos that Morrissey had the connection of kind of recreating the James Dean photo. So it's almost like 3 layers of cool. I did them this time with my son at the Cal Dean grave and stuff. And then just James Dean's buried there too. And so that's great. And that was huge just as a kid, making that connection. Even like Kill Uncle, there's like a James Dean picture where it's the exact same pose and everything coming up from the bottom. Even Viva Hate is pretty similar to like a really shadowy James Dean picture that you could kind of piece them all together. So it was cool getting all the double dose of James Dean fandom and Morrissey connections there, even like with the owners and everything. And that was like the big thing at the newer museum. She got all excited. The girl working there, it said, well, you got to get your picture next to the conga drum, because not only was it the conga drum that was James Dean's favorite one, but that's the one Morrissey played at the farm there in the video. And I was like, oh man, yes. And there was like the one, this would seem a little more hard to know how accurate this was, but it was the chalkboard they have in the museum from James Dean's old school, which definitely is the chalkboard, but it still said you can't go home, that Morrissey apparently had written during the Suede Head video on the wall. They were saying it was still there, like it hadn't gotten smeared off or anything. So that was technically Morrissey's, it was his handwriting. He has like that really obvious kind of handwriting, but they could have recreated that a little bit probably. But even if it's smeared, who cares? It's I was like, this is Morrissey's. Yeah. So very cool. Lots of cool connections. And I'd still love to track down his book he wrote the James Dean's Not Dead one. Do you have a copy of that by any chance?
I haven't. My friend Sophie's got a copy, which I often, when I'm around, I'm always thinking I wouldn't mind taking that home. But she's got a copy. One of Morrissey's first
published works,
So obviously a big link there, but no, that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. It's almost doable online. You can find copies for like $150 or something. Sometimes, it's probably not worth it, but just, like one of those things, or if you had the money, it'd be a cool thing to have for sure. But that's cool. I'm glad you made it out there too. I was like, I wonder, just because it is such a cool Morrissey and James Dean pilgrimage out there.
I did feel like a pilgrimage. Yeah, it was cool to be there. I enjoyed that stretch. Hard to find vegan food in that part of the world.
Yeah, I bet.
But apart from that, I don't know what Morrissey did, but apart from that, it was great.
Yeah, the town's a bit thin there, even in the heart of the summer when we went there. It was pretty. We went a little further out. The guys at the gallery recommended there's a British pub there, and the owners actually had moved there. He said he was from Manchester and stuff, so we had a good little Smith chat with him too and stuff, and he was really cool. But
did you have any food in there?
Fish and chips, but so it was really good though. So I was happy that we got that recommendation, or it would have been some weird, eating steak and tater tots or something. So
different. Yeah.
Not much there other than James Dean fame, and connections. But I guess we could start to wind down there.
Thank you for inviting us, Gav.
Oh, no problem. So nice to meet you guys.
And really interesting to hear your perspective on doing a single artist podcast like we do.
I think it's great. I encourage more people. I've always been thinking it'd be great to just get like some kind of super team together of, there really should be like Depeche Mode ones, and a New Order kind of did their own. So I feel like that's been covered, but those are all my holy trinity is like Cure, Smiths, New Order, Joy Division, those are all my but I love it because you can really do the deep dives more and stuff, and get into because so many band podcasts, you cover them, but you gotta rehash the same shit everybody's heard a billion times, and everybody kind of just praises the same ones and bashes on the same ones a little bit. So when you whole focus, it's fun. That's like I kind of like when there's down periods with the Cure and we don't have a ton to talk to, so it can be like, let's just do like the most recent ones, like imaginary questions we would ask Robert. They're just actual legit questions, and some are just really stupid goofy questions that you don't want to know. And we've discussed his drinks and stuff that are based on what drinks would you pair with Cure songs and stuff like that. So it's fun to think of all those different avenues and themes almost that you can squeeze the life out of these artists. So I love it and encourage others to do it. But you guys definitely keep up the great work out there. I really look forward to every episode when it drops. And
I look forward to your next episode as well with these bits. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, this will be great. And so anybody out there remotely interested, definitely check out their podcast. And like we said, it's monthly. Any thoughts of ever upping it? You guys going to crank out more? Or you?
Oh, that would mean I have to spend more time with George, wouldn't I?
You would have to spend more time with me. I think we can just about manage a month. We've both got the full-time jobs and we live in different cities. So we can just about manage once a month. I'd love to do more, maybe one day.
No, that's good. I think it's good when, I always tempted to just do it weekly, but then I always feel like I'm rushing as it is, the last minute because I edited it all myself and everything. So it's kind of like, the more you could kind of spend time and put the segments together, and you guys got a really nice tight thing there, and it's really professional sounding and looking, and, really all the segments fit together and nothing gets overly drawn out. I feel like a lot of times I'm just like scrambling, like, oh, how about this week we talk about disintegration again, So I think it's good that you have a little breathing space as much as I always want more. So look forward to it though. There's only about a handful of podcasts where I've listen to every episode as soon as they come out, and you guys are definitely in there.
So. Thank you. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. And safe travels in California. Enjoy. I think it'll
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited.
Show.
Yeah, got a long flight from Manchester via Frankfurt.
Yeah.
But, I'll be there.
Enjoy. I look forward to hearing the review, and we'll be in touch. We'd love to have you back sometime soon. So,
thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so go put on some Smith, some Morrissey, some Cure. Put them on at the same time, even. There's no rules. Go for it. And we'll leave you there. Thanks, guys, and everyone out there for listening. Talk hard. Okay, again, the podcast is called Morrissey and Wine. You can stream it everywhere that you stream your podcasts, and check out that fancy YouTube visual version as well over there on their Morrissey and Wine page on YouTube. If you're any level Smiths or Morrissey's fan, that's the podcast to check out. And I can't thank George and Chris enough for coming on here and talking with us. Sorry I was rambling so much. You guys know how I get around new friends, and just when I get excited, talking The Cure, throw the Smiths on top of that, and then James Dean talk by the end. I was just blah, 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 blah. So hopefully I didn't totally scare them off, and hopefully you guys enjoyed broadening the horizons and opening our gates just for a split second to the Morrissey world. I know it's not a lot of y'all's bag, but hopefully you enjoyed the conversation nonetheless and didn't get too spooked for this holiday spooktacular episode. But before we go, I do want to recap. There have been some updates to the 2026 tour festival circuit that is happening, unfolding before our eyes. I won't read through all of them again, but we had some new ones announced. June 7th, they'll be playing the North Festival in Portugal. We added a third night to Berlin. So those Berlin shows are going to be fucking rad, because I'm pretty sure those are more straight up Cure shows, right? So July 10th, 11th, and now the 12th in Berlin. And shortly after that, they're playing the Electric Castle Festival between July 16th and 19th. And that's in Romania, if you happen to be out in Romania. Or maybe you're like, damn, I'm in Bulgaria on the 17th. Well, guess what? You're in luck there, too, because the Feel Good Festival is happening July 17th in Bulgaria. And you should go see The Cure. On top of that, a Sweden festival, the Way Out West Swedish Festival, is happening between August 13th and 15th. So, taking us to about 19 shows so far. So, looking good. Looking at our chances for the U.S., Riot Fest is in September. So, they could pop over in September and do that Riot Fest in Chicago. Austin City Limits is always still a good bet in the month of October. Last time they did that in 2019, they played the first weekend, then popped down to Mexico City, and then popped back for the second week of Austin City Limits. So that's still possible. And, you know, maybe they could do another Pasadena Daydream kind of thing where they do a one-off. I didn't remember that being so much of a one-off, but it was. They played Pasadena in August 31st, then came back to the U.S. for October's Austin City Limits. So maybe they could do something like that, or even in May before all this starts. So who knows? I recommend just keeping your eyes peeled, and we'll see what happens. And also the big news of the last 2 weeks was on the Cure's bio page. They updated it and threw in 2 little nuggets for us. And of course, they're blowing up all the headlines out there, kind of making it more all absolute sounding than it is. But it was pretty cool. They said that they, back in March of this year, went into the studio again and recorded 13 songs for the follow-up album, which is like, holy shit, it's in the bio. That's pretty official. So cool. A little weird, just because I thought they were already recorded. Wasn't that supposed to be the sessions that they just took the songs because they were already done? So who knows what they mean by recorded. Maybe they went back in, did a few more overdubs, but not like the whole core songs. Or maybe they were just like, fuck it, let's re-record these 13 songs for the next album. Either way, they recorded something, so add it to the vault if nothing else. And then at the bottom of that, they said, and they're currently working on a film for Shows of a Lost World from the tour, I guess. It didn't get specific if it was from the European shows of like 2022 or into the North American 2023. Could have been the festivals in South America by the end, but some kind of Shows of a Lost World film might be in the works. Not exactly what we need, but I'll gladly see that and buy it and rush out on day one. So that'll be pretty rad if it's a good concert footage of those amazing shows that we can watch over and over, which we kind of already have with the Troxy. But anyway, a lot to debate with those. I'm sure it'll come up many more times, and I'd love to get the other guys' opinions, so I won't go on and on about it now. And we'll just wrap up with a nice little shout out to our Patreon, who we love and adore. Thank you so much to the Patreon crew. Patreon.com/The Holy Hour Podcast is where you can be a part of the action and really support the podcast here and be one of our star members like Craig and Donna and Jeff Hilton, Jeff Cortland Jones, Sue, John, Allison, Dion, Amicio, Matt Ford, we got Tom Burns, we got Letty, John Roberts, Tony, Ben, Matt Fisher, Danny, Coulter, Tom Johnson, Francisco, Arno, Chip, Amber, Nicholas, Shirley, Jason Hall, Steve, Mara, Caroline, Brian, Sean, Colin, and Jennifer, and of course Kate from the wonderful CureThreads.com. Her online shop is over there and has tons of original Cure inspired designs on a wide range of products, especially as we inch towards the dreaded holiday season. So get your orders in now so you can lock those down. And also, she threw out a message to let you guys know, contact her directly if you are interested in purchasing from CureThreads.com. Due to some stupid price increases that are out of her control, she wants you to get the best available price, and she can possibly hook you up as much as up to 20%, it sounded like, if you contact her directly. So go to the CureThreads.com, pick out what you want, and DM her at Forget About Stars on Instagram, or email her at mycurethreads@gmail.com, and hopefully she can help you out a little bit there, because she wants to get it to you for the best price there possible. So and also, of course, Cure Arts Collab on Instagram is in the middle. We're winding down Curetober here. It's wrapping up, but we still have time to participate in the last few, or just admire all the lovely artwork people have been submitting over the month of October. It's been really awesome seeing everybody's wonderful work. Congrats to everybody. I've tried to share a bunch when I see them, but there's just so many cool ones. So go check it out. Just the hashtag Cure Arts Collab and Curetober. See what's out there. Scott Kroger is over at the Sarlacc Digest. That's an all Star Wars podcast, and you can check out their live show on YouTube Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m. Pacific time. And you can also catch the link on Facebook. And the audio replays every time and everywhere that you stream podcasts. Perfect for any level Star Wars fan. And always an intelligent, engaging conversation about the beloved Star Wars franchise. So go check it out and be a part of the action. Maybe I'll see you in the pit, the live chat pit. David runs The Obsessive Geek on Etsy. That's a shop of his that's packed full of cool products, including 3D printed recreations of Cure album covers. Also, he does Boys Don't Cry keychains, Fascination Street signs, and tons of high quality, affordable products. Check out The Obsessive Geek on Etsy. Dana is a wonderful freelance animation, illustration, motion graphics designer, and currently open to new projects and commissions. So you can get in touch with her and check out her work at graphics.tv. That's graphics with an X.tv. Tanya would like to spread awareness of 988lifeline.org. A suicide and crisis hotline with over 200 crisis call centers located all over the U.S., available 24/7, offering free and confidential support for people in distress with numerous prevention and crisis resources, too. If you or anyone you know is in need of help, please reach out to 988lifeline.org. Lisa recommends you check out Dickens, the coolest venue in Calgary, Canada. You can visit dickensyyc.com for the full scoop of upcoming events. And don't forget to check out Chaz's other podcast. It's now called James Dobson's Bastard Kids. New name, same great show. And each week he and Chrissy take on the evangelical church. And hopefully, still trying to get Chrissy on here. We're going to get her one of these times, and we're going to have her whole backstory and do some lovely cure chatting. It'll be great to catch up with Chrissy. All right, and of course, Morrissey and Wine Podcast, as George and Chris told you all about. Go check it out, and I hope you had a lovely Halloween out there. We're having our party on November 1st this year. We're calling it October 32nd. It's going to be real cool. And I'm happy and proud to announce that we will have a little Robert Smith with us. Henson has decided that he is going to be a very specific Robert Smith, the Love Cats Robert Smith from the video. We're going to try to recreate the look. So fingers crossed we can pull it off. And I'll post pictures, of course, everywhere once we pull it off. If you see him and he's a pony boy from The Outsiders, you know that something went horribly wrong. But I think we could do it. All we got to do is straighten out those curls and stick them straight up. I got a good red shirt with black polka dots, funny little belts, and lots of jewelry. And we'll see what we can do. Send us your pictures from Halloween, especially if you dressed up as Robert Smith or anyone Cure related. Always love seeing all the cool Halloween Cure related stuff out there. So send it or tag us. I'd love to see it, and I hope our Morrissey Halloween episode didn't spook you too bad, so all you Morrissey haters can relax. Next week we'll go back to all Cure talk. All right, until next time, thanks again, George and Chris, and you guys for listening. Talk on.